Ooh. Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. One of our community members, she has COVID right now, and so we'll all pray for her well-being, for everyone in our community's well-being, for all of humanity's well-being. Relax your body, enjoy breathing, and quieten your mind. Salve santu niramayaha. May all be healthy. In Canada, an event that is manifesting is known as the Freedom Convoy. It started with a group of truckers from British Columbia who drove across Canada to the capital, protesting against needing to be vaccinated to go into America and come back. And to me, as someone who is vaccinated, boosted, etc., to me, this was inefficient. And so I didn't give too much of my time to this. However, on Saturday, my parents had to drive from Niagara to Toronto to fly to Delhi. And so I was concerned that if there's so many trucks on the highways near Toronto and so on, then what will happen in terms of them getting to the airport? And thankfully, the truckers were not in Toronto, they were in Ottawa. This is not me broadcasting my personal life. What I'm trying to share is, see how this event got personalized for me because my parents had to fly that day. Because if they don't make their flight, who's going to have to help? I'm going to have to help then. And I'm sharing this with all of you. Meaningful Mornings is a workshop to personalize teachings, guidance, whatever you've been listening to for almost 600 mornings. Personalize this and see how much more real this becomes. Shri Krishna, in the recent verses, is moving through perspectives, starting with infinity. In verses 8 and 9, he shares, Naiva kinchit karomi iti. From the perspective of infinity, I do nothing. Why am I doing nothing? Because I am being. That's what existence and awareness and joy are, they're being. He shifts to the perspective of divinity. So that we're not confused about this, divinity is God, Bhagwan, and so on. This is in verse 10, Brahmani adhaya karmani. And the implication here is, I have this feeling that all of my actions are for divinity. He shifts to another perspective in verse 11, to the individuality. What is the individual to do to rise up to divinity, to rise up to infinity? Yoga is for Shuddha. In English, integrity is for purity. Our lives should be for yoga or integrity. And by doing so, there will be Shuddha or purity. Now we may be thinking, how? How do I practice integrity? What I recently shared with our Silence Retreat students is every day practice Likita Japa, which means you write out, and while you're writing, you're saying it. While you're saying it, you're thinking it, a meaningful phrase. Classically, it could be Om Namah Shivaya. Contemporarily, it could be I am joy. Likita Japa brings our actions and words and thoughts together. This develops integrity. What about purity? How do I practice purity? The more one's equipments are being directed, the less those equipments limit you. I'll share that again. When I am practicing purity, a very clear way of doing that is directing my equipment. I have a balanced mind, I have a focused mind, so I'm telling my equipments where to go. Impurity is when I'm reactive and distracted, so my equipments control me. So feel less limited by your equipment. And for some, that may be abstract. A wonderful example of this is Sri Hanumana. When Sri Hanumana was living for Sugriva, then he was good. I would change that. He was great, but he was not the greatest. When he started to live for Sri Rama, he went from great to the greatest. Every one of his equipments was directed towards Sri Rama, and so those equipments didn't affect him. He can jump farther, he can see farther, and on and on and on. I hope that was clear to all of you. Practice Likita Japa. You will find there's an integrity amongst your equipments. Then direct them. Direct them to purity, and these equipments will affect you less. If you do this, that is shared in verse 12. And if you don't do this, that is also shared in verse 12. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shantimapnoti naishtakim ayukta kama karena phale sakto nibhadyate. Yuktaha, the one who's practicing integrity. In other words, you're doing what was shared in verse 11. Karma phalam tyaktva. You renounce results. You have heard this before. You've read this before. Here's another insight. Every one of us has three fundamental desires. They're called ashanas. Desire, in another sense, is called ashana. These fundamental desires are putra ashana, the desire for pleasure. More powerful than this is vitta ashana, the desire for possession. More powerful than this is loka ashana, the desire for position. The one who has renounced results, that means they've also renounced these desires. They do not have desires for pleasure, possession, position. Now reflect more. Where do desires come from? Desires come from vasanas, our blueprint. Our blueprint determines the desires determine thoughts, and so on. So the one who is renounced results, that means they've renounced why they acted. I just talked about those desires, which means their vasana, their blueprint now is less, I am the body, and now more, I am divinity. They have a Atma Vasana. The fulfillment of that is in the next quarter. Shantim apnoti naishtakim. They rediscover Shanti. Can you all show me Shanti? Lots of people are named Shanti. But one feels this. Naishtaki means finally, forever. You live happily ever after in this lifetime, in every lifetime. That is an amazing word. In other words, you have completed right attitude, right actions, right Atma. Remember I talked about Atma Vasana. And what does that all come together as? The right Ananda. That's if you live by verse 11. If you don't, Ayuktaha, the one who is disintegrated. Their actions, their words, their thoughts, they're not integrated, so they themselves can't direct them. Kama karena, they live by desire. And now I've stated to you the three fundamental desires. Yesterday I used the word bhogi. The first line is a yogi. The second line is a bhogi. Their disintegration makes them distracted. To me, if I were to come up with an image of disintegration and distraction, it would be spilling. Imagine you have a precious substance like hot coffee. You worked so hard to clean the filter, to prepare it, and you have it, and you trip on something, and all of that coffee goes onto the floor in your fresh clothes. Now you're sitting in meaningful mornings and you're self-conscious. That would be so wasteful, no? That's what a bhogi is. They're just spilling their potential. It is all wasted. Phale sakto nibhadyate. They're acting for desire, which means they're attached to results. With attachment comes fear, anger. Soon you will see a rad about anger. Please note it. You will laugh. Nibhadyate means completely. They are completely limited. And who did it to them? They did it to them. What are we supposed to do? What I shared with our silence retreaters is slow down. Just think of that coffee example. If you walk slowly, there's a fine chance you'll spill less, correct? When you slow down, you step back. Like, what am I doing with my day? What am I doing with my life? When you step back, you see more. more about your potential, more about change that is needed. This seeing more is being an observer, which I'll talk more about tomorrow. From inspiration to application. Your application yesterday was, after you completed a bank transaction, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Yes? I've shared many times with all of you how the sense of entitlement is an awful sense. I see this with the younger generation. They feel they're entitled to the hard work of their parents. When we are living a life that is directed towards results and doership, how are we any different? Our original parent, Sri Krishna, has done all the work for us, through us. We're not entitled to that. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu reminds us of that. How many of you practiced? Good. Your application for this morning, every time you make a mistake, think about why you made that mistake and then say sorry to Shri Krishna. Yes, we all make mistakes, but if we don't reflect on it, we're going to do it again. So why did I make that mistake? Then say sorry. Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.